unmute my mic here. Hello. Currently have a map pulled up showing the bleaching alerts in the ocean in the southern hemisphere. Remember before the seasons changed when it was the northern hemisphere that was under a severe bleaching alert. And last year, Florida lost a great deal out of their coral reefs. Very unfortunate. The bleaching happens when a change in temperature or pollution encounters healthy coral reef. And that shift causes the algae, the primary source of food of the coral reef, is deprived of it. You can't chase it. I have no agenda here. I'm just very upset because there is a lot of news. This is happening faster than anybody probably predicted. Nobody predicted last year that this year was going to be the hottest year on record, period. Every month is breaking records. Every record, land or sea, is being broken constantly. And as you've seen in many of the videos that I've done looking at sea ice, especially by the Larsen shells, it looks just a huge failure of ice. There's no sea ice. It's fast ice, it's moving. It's not part of the sea ice extent that would make up Antarctica. I'm sorry for that. I digressed a little bit here. But this is from NOAA. There. What causes coral bleaching? Change in change in ocean temperature, runoff and pollution, overexposure to sunlight, which sea ice would cover underneath, would provide shade from the sunlight because it would reflect it instead of absorbing the sunlight, and extremely low tides. So here you have healthy coral. And this is what we were looking at when they found that new area of coral reef in the Great Barrier Reef. And then it became stressed due to massive temperature changes finding their way in throughout all over the place. And it's the ocean. Now we're at here. Get into more of this later. A couple of articles to get into. As bleached coral is being seen in the Great Barrier Reef. I mean, to what end does it even matter anymore? There is no place safe. You understand? The ocean heats up everywhere. No longer have the green protection that hold up your beaches. They will fail. All of them will fail. But as the water heats up in the southern hemisphere and bleaching begins the entire southern hemisphere, it also warms up our southern pole, the Antarctica. The Antarctic. The line of the Antarctic. And unfortunately, major loss in sea ice. Sea ice that you can only measure by states or countries. There isn't, well, Well, that one's a trip to the store. I was serious. There's a tremendous amount of failure of sea ice extent reforming in the southern hemisphere, and the hottest ocean temperatures on record, time after time again, means the hottest waters, even in the south. This is especially crushing and devastating because caring about the next generation to come, wanting them to do better when we were handed pretty much everything broken, without any say in the matter of what is going on. Because it's not individual persons that are doing bad things that are affecting climate. It's a lie. It's a lot of people doing very, very bad things and looking the other way. It's uncanny, this map here. As you can see, Australia here on the right side is completely covered from left top to bottom with ocean bleaching. This is very unfortunate, and unfortunately people are just going to throw their hands up and say there's just nothing that we can do. Yes, there is some things that we can do, but nobody is going to like it. Well, the alternative is to wait for disaster. Maximize until disaster. That is what we're at here. We want to maximize profits, want to maximize gains, want to maximize revenue. For what? There would be no place safe on Earth. That includes bunkers. You can forget that science fiction mumbo jumbo right out the gate. Is bunkers are protection from bombs, explosions. Since they're air explosion usually, or above, they are not going to protect you from another 5 feet of ocean water surging. This is the tropics here. That little and that is where we're going to find the greatest imbalance. It's spiking. It's going through the roof. They're going to have to make a new graphic. This is daily surface air temperatures in the tropics, which I painted there a minute ago. This is not good. And this is spiking. February led into March, and March is just as severe as the spike in temperatures that February saw, so March is going to follow suit. And it doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon, so if you live in the equator, especially the equator, you're going to start seeing conditions rapidly changing. And that's if there isn't a climate shift, so there isn't a reason to, no, it's beyond being hypothetical anymore. It's beyond what we believe, what we fearing could happen. No, this is happening now. And we're going to act like we don't know what's causing it when we do. The burning of fossil fuels and contamination and pollution, every source of water is dumping PFAS in a lake, dumping PFAS in a river. That comes back because that doesn't go anywhere. And we're starting to see Salt Lake dry up. Seeing a lot of failures that have to do with water, ice, and lakes and rivers. But when you have an absolute hot month like March is looking to be around the equator, a lot of things that you depend on being consistent in temperature fails. You want to say that 1.5 C. After 1.0, I mean, should have really hit the brakes on some of the things. But military is outside the jurisdiction of environmental protections and leave the land in any condition they want, as we can see with what Israel has done to Gaza, forcing so much hardships. They also are losing their woods, their forests, their agricultural means, land. Same as Russia invading Ukraine. Even though that the land might not be Russians, they destroy it. They destroy their wheat. They destroy their crops. They make the land more difficult to process, because if somebody's driving a tractor through it and they hit a bomb, it's going to destroy themselves and the equipment. Shell, something that buried into the ground that didn't explode. These affect world food opportunities. Let's say if Ukraine isn't able to grow anything 2 seasons. After all this fighting over cheap wheat through by banning Ukrainian wheat is just reactionary. Because who knows in another year where the hell they're going to be with being able to supply the world at 30%. And these temperature changes will cause unfathomable infutable data. Back on phone ringing. There we go. Now, we're looking at, it says 1.4, but it's not, it's a spike here. The tropics are going to experience their hottest year on record, land and sea, as they already have been this year. This isn't a prediction. I'm not being hypothetical here. It's already happened. It's already happening. It's unhelpful to throw up your hands, because what we learned through being able to have information global with COVID, when there is disaster lurking, the world was told How many times has the world been told that the burning of fossil fuels is leading to the destruction of climates around the planet? Now, where I live, we have usually a pretty terrible winter around this time, lots of snow, but that's not happening. Even though that it might be colder, it might snow a little bit, the next day it'll be 70 degrees. People just throw up their arms and live life as they would. But are people just waiting for someone to tell them what to do and what not to do? I don't think so. I don't think that if a country like India doesn't survive this heat wave that's coming, no other country has any hope in surviving their heat wave. And there is no place to go. There is no bunker. People will buy into anything. But that's why climate change fears, that's why everybody fears so much of climate change. Because you can't run from it. You can't go to a different country that isn't going to be experiencing what you're running from. This is going to be the hardest fact. Not fact. Yeah, fact. Because when climate begins to shift and we begin to see disasters, I'm not talking more about sea level rise, interruption of the rain cycle, and evaporation of unnecessary water that leads to massive storms of months worth of rain in just a few short hours. You know, these kind of things we've been seeing. I've lost count how many times I've heard somebody say, I haven't felt weather like this here in 20 years. I haven't seen this in 20 years. I have never been here 20 years. I've never seen anything like this before. I'm here to say that after all the years monitoring and following climate, and especially you have to look at other countries, because the world is not a closed system. What people do in India, Australia, and China, people do in the United States, and South America, and Canada, it all matters. And just offsetting pollution by offsetting the manufacturing to a different country doesn't matter, because you're just prolonging the problem. You're just prolonging the inevitable, that the pollution's going to wind up in your rivers. They're going to wind up in your water supply and your wells. It might have been preventable at some point, but with emissions from factories, from oil transit, just oil burning kills birds. You notice in the last 100 years, there's one thing that has been less and less of, and that's birds. Used to have what's called passenger pigeons. They used to fly in the flocks of billions. And since industrial age, they've been gone, extinct. First major indicator species, as we always say, is a bird, a canary in the coal mine. Well, billions of birds that used to fly around as long as humanity can remember blot out the sun, because clouds weren't the only thing that would block sunlight. Now we just have a very, very small pigeon population comparatively. They're not the same pigeons. Those pigeons, passenger pigeons, have long been extinct. Great Barrier Reef, new mass bleaching event hits World Heritage Site. Australia's iconic Great Barrier Reef is suffering another mass bleaching event, officials have confirmed. Bleaching occurs when heat-stressed corals expel the algae that gives them life and color. It is the 5th time in 8 years widespread damage has been detected at the UNESCO World Heritage Site. Only 2 mass bleaching events has ever been recorded until 2016. Mind you, only 2 mass bleaching events were recorded in 2016. Right now, the whole southern hemisphere is bleaching. It's not just Australia, it's the whole southern hemisphere, the whole South Pacific, the South Atlantic, all the seas. And the Horn of Africa is under great stress. Countries like Nigeria that are in the hundreds of millions are, especially South Africa as well, is reportedly so much water infrastructure failure in South Africa that this is going to cause detrimental damage to their coastlines, to fishing, because we've never seen anything like this before. Doesn't mean that we're not going to know how it's going to play out. You're going to see an absorbent amount of marine life that dies, but only so much marine life floats to the surface or gets to the surface before it dies. Most of it sinks or is eaten by predators, scavengers. The frequency and scale at which these mass bleaching events are now occurring is frightening. Every summer we're holding our breath, said Greenpeace Australia's David Ritter. Claims that Australia has taken the health of the Great Barrier Reef seriously ring hollow when we continue to expand and subsidize the coal and gas industry to the tune of billions of dollars each year. It is literally cooking the reef. Stretching over 2,300 kilometers or 1,400 miles off Australia's northeast coast, the Great Barrier Reef is the world's largest coral system and is one of the most biodiverse habitats. An aerial survey of 320 reefs from the tip of Australia to the city of Bundaberg showed most are experiencing prevalent bleaching after a summer of heightened sea temperatures. The Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority said in-water examinations are underway to determine the severity and depth of the damage, which likely varies greatly across the reef. The body's chief scientist Roger Bedin told the BBC that bleaching in the southern zone, though, was the worst in almost 20 years and become unprecedented. I'm saying here that you won't see something like this before. This is the whole southern hemisphere that's being experiencing ocean bleaching. It means corals failing all across the southern hemisphere. And when the axis shifts again, and it's the northern hemisphere, we will expect this and more. It is a cycle that will continue because the planet has to adapt by going around certain systems because it's artificial. It has no pollution. Nothing thrives under smoke. So what do we expect by allowing so much smoke out to happen? Smoke goes in the water, smoke goes everywhere. Poisons everything. And not enough is being done. Or I should say, too much is being done. The other way of looking at it is that manufacturing in progress is getting to such heights that the world can't handle it anymore. It's uncomfortable to think about. So that's why I'm here streaming. More trying to make sense out of it, because why isn't this non-stop news? You'd only expect that when humanity sees itself on the brink, that humanity sees itself struggling. Especially, like, let's say during COVID, that the entire world at some point knew about COVID. And I don't think that's going to happen with climate. I think it would have happened already, especially in larger countries that have been seeing rapid spikes in heat. Alright, I got one moment. That was chaos, I'm sorry. Cats are extra fun today. I will hold one up if I can get one, but they're just horsing around. Thought I heard something break. It's just them dropping a metal pan. Oh, where the hell was I? It's too early to say what the full consequences of this event is. If the conditions cool, we could see a lot what's bleached to recover. Over the past decade, the reef has rebuilt itself from other mass bleaching events, severe tropical cyclones, and chroniform starfish outbreaks, he added. Record-breaking global sea temperatures have recently triggered similar bleaching events in the northern hemisphere. And this week, bleaching was also spotted in the world's southernmost reef at Lord Howe Island, which too lies in Australia waters. The Great Barrier Reef has been heritage listed for over 40 years due to its enormous importance, but UNESCO says the icon is under serious threat from warming seas and pollution. Successor Australian governments have fought to keep the body from declaring a tourist drawcard in danger, which could see it lose heritage status. The decision will be reviewed again in July. Calling climate change the biggest threat to coral reefs worldwide, Environmental Minister Tanya Burszek said her government has increased funding for reef conservation, introduced stronger emissions reduction targets. It's essential we do everything we can to protect this amazing place for our kids and grandkids. The UN's most recent climate change report found the prevalence of future mass bleaching events depends on how quickly the world cuts emissions. So the world cuts emissions and everything can recover. This is from the Washington Post. I don't know if I said this is from BBC.com, BBC News. This article here about the Australian Barrier Reef, it was from a week ago, this article. This article here is from the Washington Post from today. Scientists fear planetary shift as record ocean heat enters second year. Warming trend could represent a major change to Earth systems that cannot be reversed on any human timescale. Maybe it is too late. Maybe it is too late if we just stop driving and stop flying and stop sailing. Like diesel on a ship, how much fuel, like, incredible. Especially a plane, jumbo plane, giant plane. Let's say conservative estimates, how many flights there is every day in the United States, 90,000. You really think that it's somebody driving to the corner store on Sundays causing problems? No, but they're going to have to be made to feel that way. Guilt. But people that want to recycle, like, with a vengeance, like, they will get angry at you without recycling. When over 98% of plastics that have ever been created are still existing today, because recycling plastics is a lie. At this time last year, scientists watched in disbelief as the world's oceans surged to record levels of warmth and wondered what could have triggered it. The jump in ocean temperatures was more dramatic than anything seen before. The scientists explored a link to El Nino, the climate pattern known for warming up the Pacific Ocean, and potential warming influences from diminished shipping, liner pollution, and a major volcanic eruption. But nothing explained the influx of warmth as it held up for months on end and spread heat waves across nearly all of the ocean surfaces. Now the unprecedented streak of ocean heat is entering its second year. What we're looking at here. The ocean heat. And you see how, click here, level no stress, level 1 and level 2. It only goes up to level 2, and that's red. And it is an enormous amount of red all across the planet. That's ocean bleaching. It strips the corals reefs of their colors and their food source, causes them to go black and die. They do not recover. There is no level 3. There is only level 2. That's because what they have seen in the ocean so far doesn't add up. It could imply that a warming planet is already fundamentally altering how the climate system operates, much sooner than scientists had anticipated. Ocean temperatures jump off the charts. The warming has extended far from an El Nino influenced swath of the Pacific. Across much of the Atlantic basin, for example, surface temperatures have been running 1 to 2 degrees Celsius above a 1970 to 2000 baseline. The anomaly is 3 degrees Celsius or more in some waters off South Africa, Japan, and the Netherlands. South Africa down here, we mentioned. The ocean heat waves coincide with the warmest conditions ever observed in the atmosphere too. Last year, average global air temperatures rose higher than humans have ever known, perhaps bringing the planet to the hottest it's been more than 100,000 years. Climate scientists predict 2024 could be even hotter. But to see such dramatic warming throughout Earth's oceans is even more alarming, given that it takes far more energy to warm water than it does air. Timescale of the oceans is not as fast as the atmosphere. Once the change is established, I would say it's almost irreversible in time scales to go from centennial to millennial. In its annual State of the Climate report issued Tuesday, The organization said many climate indicators last year gave ominous new significance to the phrase off the charts. That included unprecedented glacier melt, Antarctic sea ice loss, and sea level rise as marine heat waves spread throughout more than 90% of the ocean surfaces at some point during 2023. The most exceptional warmth hit the North Atlantic, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Caribbean, the North Pacific, and large areas of the Southern Ocean, WMO said. Since April, global average sea surface temperatures have hit records every month, with records in July, August, and September by a particularly wide margin. Deep yet unpredictable impacts. The warming of the world's oceans is already having devastating consequences for coral reefs. Fatal levels of heat hit a large unspoiled section of Australia's Great Barrier Reef this month, a repeat of the bleaching and mortality of coral reefs around Florida last year. Other impacts will take more time to detect. There are worries the warming and melting is pushing a key Atlantic Ocean current system to collapse. It would have massive impacts on underwater ecosystems and weather patterns, and there are likely to be cascading impacts on marine life. In the Gulf of Maine, where waters have been warming much faster than the world's oceans at large, researchers have already seen important species such as cod and herring struggling to find cool waters within their normal geographic range. Many fish are growing more rapidly at young ages, but then plateauing at smaller sizes, a sign that they aren't getting enough food or the heat is stressing their bodies. Catherine Mills, a senior scientist at the Gulf of Maine Research Institute. The temperatures observed over the past year are so extreme relative to past conditions, becoming more difficult to reliably predict what the consequences couldn't be, Mills said. Existing data on ecosystem changes is becoming too outdated, too fast, she said. We generally expect that in the ocean there will be variability in temperatures. What this has done is send that variability well into the range that we haven't encountered before. I think it's a real wake-up call. No signs of a cool down. Scientists don't know if or when the extreme ocean warming will subside. So far, none of their theories for what is driving it has answered all questions. Some warming is likely tied to a decrease in air pollution from shipping liners, which allows more sunlight to reach ocean surfaces, and the eruption of the underwater volcano Hunga Hyapa near the island near Tonga in 2022 sent vast amounts of water vapor, a planet-warming greenhouse gas, into the atmosphere. But neither factor explains the drastic surge in ocean heat. Ocean temperatures surged last spring at the tail end of what has been 3 straight years of La Nina global climate pattern, which is the opposite of El Nino and known for suppressing global heating. The switch from La Nina to what became a historically strong El Nino, known for boosting planetary temperatures, could explain a lot of the jump in ocean warmth, said Boying Hang, a NOAA oceanographer focused on ocean temperature analysis. So it's possible that ocean temperatures could moderate later this year with La Nina conditions forecast to return. But it remains to be seen whether a switch from El Nino back to La Nina would be enough to significantly counteract the warming of the power of greenhouse gases. That could become clear by late summer if ocean temperatures continue setting records, Wong said. If record warmth persists even under La Nina conditions, Schmidt wrote, the world will be in uncharted territory, with far more uncertainty over its future climate than scientists had previously known. This should be more than a wake-up call. But it's not going to be. Even just mentioning climate change to people can provoke them into violence. This is detrimental to the cause. Because what we want to protect is the world for generations to come. Not just the next generation, and then they might have it. Because they won't. You can see that here right now. The next generation is already in trouble. Just that it's okay in one location doesn't mean that other areas aren't suffering greatly, especially the tropics. We don't know what could happen. Modeling will show failures across the board, but until we start seeing it happening like we are seeing it happen, because let's take a look at sea ice real quick. Go here. This is the Larsen ice shelves. This here is huge sea ice extent breaking up. That will be for another stream. The sea ice changes rapidly these days. But the more recent images look like they're obscured by cloud coverage, so I'll wait. Some of the areas, most of the areas, are looking just gone. For Antarctica, there's a whole other, the North Atlantic. This is what the article is referring to, the current failing. It's not extending. It's not going any further north. It continues to fail, and only getting halfway through is one of the seas there. I can't remember what sea that is. But it's, the currents aren't getting out there. A better representation of it. Of the North Atlantic currents that the Washington Post article was referring to when it came to the Gulf of Maine, all the way past Newfoundland, all the way up to Greenland, all the way to Iceland. These currents flow. It's March, no later than 2023. Daily map. This is Antarctica. And this is sea ice extent of Antarctica. Declining. So it's not just coral reefs, it's not just some sea, it's not just limited to one area in particular. You're not going to see just that joke that, oh, this is going to be beachfront property anytime soon. You're going to see coastal failures across Florida this year. They lost their mangroves, they lost all of their protection from erosion, from bank failure. This interrupts rain cycle. This causes a lot of heat to be absorbed into the oceans because there's not any more being reflected off sea ice. It is very alarming. This is a northern Atlantic current. Due to conditions that are just wildly out of control, it never makes that journey north any further and just continues to fall apart. As you can see here, this is as far south as you can go, and it's deteriorating. Ice conditions. You see the ice failing, getting thinner. The ice that is thicker is driven away by the currents. And down over here, you can see much more of Earth in Antarctica. It's you can see down here too, as far south as you can go. Seeing just a huge absence of snow and the sea ice. Here's McMurdo Station, actually. And wait for this to load. Apologize. Doesn't look that frigid. Myrtle Station. Rival Heights, McMurdo Station, Antarctica. Supposed to have more sea ice here. Supposed to be able to have to take an icebreaker out here, but that's not the case lately. South Pole Station cameras. If a field here is pretty insane. See very far. That is the Munson Scott South Pole Station. Flagged all the way up. Now this we can't see. This is a South Pole Radio Telescope's camera. See barely. Palmer Station. This looks unspeakably warm. Wow. It's a lot of sun hitting the water. It's being absorbed and heating the surrounding areas around it, causing ice failure. I guess the penguin camera is down right now. That's unfortunate. But this is what we do, you know? We just think about children having to make sense of all this as they're in class learning about little pieces of this. But it's not enough because it's going to be a world of hardships because we're already seeing it. We're already seeing peak heat, peak temperatures across the board from Greenland to Antarctica. It's not a question of what will happen or how will it happen. You know, we're observing it. Especially here, we've been observing it since, I want to say June last year is, I think, when I started this channel due to the climate shift. It is notable that just at the southern hemisphere that we're watching right here, could have disastrous amounts of algae loss, coral reefs dying all around the place. There is nothing we can do about it anymore. We just wait for disaster. We overfish, we dredge seafloor, scrape, and we suck sand out of the ocean floor. We do everything on such huge systematic levels that it's just unsustainable. Even though if there's a market there to sustain it, the product itself isn't sustainable. As of right now, we're seeing record amounts of ocean bleaching in the southern hemisphere after last year when we saw record amount of ocean bleaching in the northern hemisphere. With Australia authorities speaking about the bleaching in the Great Barrier Reef, is very unfortunate, because we know that it doesn't recover. We're seeing all around South Africa and the Horn of Africa huge amounts of bleaching. Make a time lapse of this here. Go back from January 1st. Now this is the area here that we saw huge amount of ice failure. This is a volcano right here, by the way. This right here is Mount Erebus. It's an active volcano in Antarctica. See here, this sea ice, we don't know the thickness of the sea ice before it's gone, and it fails from the bottom up. So we go from is massive amounts of sea ice loss. Let me push play on this. See, it's restarting here. You see it take out the ice. As the ice breaks and fractures and moves, it gets taken by these currents out. is what more is there to say? It's supposed to be a sea ice extent that reaches far beyond there. We come back to this as we close the stream. If you haven't already, please, it helps out greatly if you like the stream and subscribe to the channel. It keeps me motivated. It keeps me motivated to do these videos, these incremental updates of what we're seeing. I thank you for joining me. Again, this isn't a warning. It is not a prediction. We're going over what we can see, what we have been seeing. Based on that, what might happen. Happening. I'll be back with another stream, hopefully soon. There's only so much I can say about sea ice and rising temperatures across the board, but it's important enough to be able to talk about each day. So if I were to make this more of a daily routine of a show, instead of popping in whenever something to say, change the format a little bit. I don't know if I'd stick to it because I would want to go live as often as possible. Thank you for joining me. Please take care.